Every time you replay a conversation or rewrite a text for the third time, it feels like careful thinking, like control. But that loop is not analysis. It is your brain's threat circuitry locking into a pattern that erodes confidence, decisions, and your ability to act. Overthinking does not protect you from mistakes. It makes sure you never move past them, and the mechanism behind it is more precise than you'd expect. Psychologists draw a sharp line between healthy reflection and the kind of mental looping that quietly takes over. Edward Watkins describes rumination as a passive, repetitive focus on past failures or distress, while worry is a restless rehearsal of imagined future threats. Both look like problem solving on the surface, but neither produces real solutions. Instead, they act as mental holding patterns, recycling the same material with no exit ramp. A key ingredient in this cycle is intolerance of uncertainty. Paul Tsiolkovsky, a leading researcher on obsessive thought, found that people who struggle with uncertainty are far more likely to check, recheck, or mentally review situations in search of reassurance. In clinical studies, intolerance of uncertainty, often measured by the IUS-12 scale, predicts the frequency of checking behaviors with a standardized beta of 0.48, even when anxiety levels are held constant. This tendency isn't just a quirk of personality, it is a measurable driver of repetitive thinking across anxiety and mood disorders. Intolerance of uncertainty does not just make people uncomfortable with open questions, it creates a strong urge to close every gap, to be certain before acting or letting go. Experimental tasks show that individuals high in IU will seek more information, hesitate longer, and revisit decisions more often, even when the extra effort does not reduce risk. The mind, in these moments, is not weighing options, it is searching for an impossible guarantee. Watkins' research reveals that these patterns split along timelines. Rumination draws people into the past, replaying what went wrong and why. Worry pushes the mind into the future, anticipating what could go wrong next. Both are amplified by intolerance of uncertainty, which acts like a fuel source for the mental engine. In a meta-analysis, intolerance of uncertainty predicted both generalized anxiety, with a correlation of 0.41, and depressive rumination, with a correlation of 0.35, suggesting that this trait sits at the heart of chronic overthinking. When uncertainty feels intolerable, the mind turns to repetitive thought as a kind of self-defense. But the relief is fleeting. The more one checks, replays, or rehearses, the stronger the urge becomes. It is a loop powered not by logic, but by the need to escape doubt, one that can quietly shape choices, confidence, and even relationships. Inside the brain, overthinking is not just a habit or a matter of personality. It is tied to specific networks that shape how thoughts repeat and why they feel so hard to escape. Joseph Ledoux's work on the amygdala reveals a rapid threat detection circuit, one that flags even mild uncertainty as something that needs urgent attention. The amygdala sends signals straight to the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for planning and decision-making. When the amygdala is on high alert, the prefrontal cortex shifts into overdrive, scanning for solutions, replaying scenarios, and searching for reassurance. This is not a conscious choice. It is a built-in response that evolved to keep us safe from danger, but now responds just as forcefully to social mistakes, ambiguous emails, or minor setbacks. Alongside this threat circuit, another network quietly powers the loop, the default mode network called the DMN. Discovered by Marcus Raichle, the DMN lights up when the mind is at rest, drifting inward, reviewing memories, or imagining future outcomes. It is the brain's background engine for self-reflection. In people prone to overthinking, the DMN shows stronger, longer-lasting activity, especially between the medial prefrontal cortex and the posterior cingulate cortex. This means that self-focused thoughts, regrets, and imagined scenarios are recycled more intensely and for longer periods. Rather than switching off when a problem is solved, the DMN keeps the mental story running, replaying the same material in search of certainty or closure. The interplay between the amygdala's rapid threat signals and the DMN's self-referential loops creates a situation where the mind feels compelled to re-examine, reanalyze, and rehearse. The result is a feedback loop. The more the threat circuit fires, the more the DMN recycles, and the harder it becomes to let go. These patterns are visible on brain scans, showing that overthinking is not a failure of willpower or discipline. It is a biological process rooted in the brain's wiring that can quietly take hold and shape everyday experience. A single text message can become a battleground for overthinking. The mind drafts, deletes, and rewrites, searching for the perfect words. Each revision is a small attempt to control the outcome, to avoid embarrassment or misunderstanding. In a 2020 field study, participants who identified as chronic overthinkers spent an average of 32% longer composing replies, often checking messages multiple times before hitting send. The cost is not just time, it is a slow erosion of confidence. Even after sending, many report replaying the conversation, scanning for signs of rejection or misinterpretation. The same pattern unfolds in the workplace. During salary negotiations, research led by Sheena Iyengar at Columbia University found that individuals who deliberated the longest, those who scoured every benchmark and rehearsed every scenario, were 12% less likely to negotiate assertively. Barry Schwartz, in his work on maximizers, describes how the drive for the best outcome can backfire. Maximizers not only take longer to decide, but are twice as likely to reverse their choices and experience regret. Even when the results are objectively favorable, choice overload does not just slow decisions, it reshapes relationships. Social invitations become fraught with analysis. Should you accept, decline, or stall? Studies show that when presented with more than 10 options, be it for a restaurant, a job, or even a dating profile, decision latency spikes and satisfaction plummets. In one experiment, participants given 12 snack choices took nearly 3 times longer to decide and reported lower enjoyment than those offered 6. These micro scenes add up. The person who hesitates to send a message, who puts off applying for a job, who replays a first date for days, each is paying a quiet tax on their social and professional life. Missed opportunities, lower salaries, and strained connections are not dramatic failures, but slow, cumulative losses. Overthinking, in these moments, is not just a private struggle. It is a measurable force shaping the trajectory of a life. Most people believe they can predict how a decision will make them feel. Yet research by Daniel Kahneman and Tali Sharot shows that the mind is a poor forecaster of its own emotional future. When asked to imagine the aftermath of a big choice, accepting a job, ending a relationship, moving to a new city, people routinely overestimate both the intensity and duration of their future feelings. On average, the gap between predicted and actual happiness reaches about 35 points on a 100-point scale. This forecasting error is not a minor quirk. It shapes the very loop of overthinking. The brain's attempt to simulate every possible outcome, to anticipate regret or disappointment, becomes a self-sustaining cycle. The more time spent rehearsing what might go wrong, the more distorted the imagined future becomes, and the harder it is to act with confidence. For those wondering if their own thinking has crossed the line into overthinking, certain patterns stand out. One marker is time. How often does a single decision or conversation replay in the mind long after the moment has passed? Chronic overthinkers report spending up to 32% longer composing texts, and they are twice as likely to reverse decisions or second-guess themselves. Sleep often suffers. Difficulty falling asleep or waking in the middle of the night to revisit old worries is common. Another sign is energy drain. Even small choices, like picking a restaurant or responding to a message, can leave a person feeling mentally exhausted. The frequency of what-ifs becomes a quiet metric. How many times a day does the mind drift into alternate realities, imagining what could have been or what might go wrong? These indicators are not just personality quirks, they are measurable checkpoints. Behavioral studies show that maximizers, those who strive for the best possible outcome, are twice as likely to experience regret and reversal, even after making objectively good choices. The mind's effort to forecast, to control, to avoid discomfort often backfires, creating a pattern where action is delayed and satisfaction remains out of reach. Recognizing these markers, the time spent replaying, the reversals, the sleep disruption, the energy drain, and the endless what-ifs, offers a first glimpse into the hidden costs of overthinking. Before any intervention can begin, awareness of these patterns is the first step toward clarity. Overthinking is a silent architect, quietly shaping choices, confidence, and connection every day. In a world where uncertainty is constant, recognizing these patterns offers rare agency. The mind's loops are not destiny. Self-awareness, not certainty, remains our most reliable tool for moving forward. What patterns are guiding your next decision?